Welcome to the party. I'm Owen.
I've just gotten a beer, so I must be SavageMick.
I've gotten bloodstains everywhere, so I must be Warlord Scarr.
And I have half a mug of tea, and I continue to be Dave.
The continuity Dave candidate.
And today, we're here because I spotted a pithy one-liner when someone was complaining about the lack of new published adventures / campaigns for their game of choice, which was plot hooks and ideas are the thoughts and prayers of GM support.
It's just applause.
It is yeah, like many pithy one-liners. It's first thought of it, you're thinking, oh yeah, that sounds really profound and intelligent, and then you think about it more and say, wait, that's saying basically nothing, and then you think about it for a while longer, and you realize it's probably like based on some level of truth and is worth considering, but you have to be nuanced and detailed in your analysis, and you probably need to do a 30-minute podcast about it.
Look,
Tight 30, folks. Here we go.
Look. What this comes down to is, for me, let's explain what thoughts and prayers means.
Okay.
Oh boy.
If you're not terminally internet poisoned, what does thoughts and prayers mean?
Means you're sending support in the form of thinking really hard about how bad it is that bad things are happening to you.
It's a genuine outreach of sympathy and empathy and solidarity from those who are only witness to tragedy to those who are suffering it. And I'm sure it has been said sincerely time and time again. But yeah.
So we're not debating the sincerity of the thoughts and prayers, we're debating whether they're any damn use.
It's high and sturdy,
yeah.
short on material support. Will we put it that way?
It could be a route towards material support by instigating such an upswell of feeling and sympathy in the witness, so as that they might turn those. I mean, they might substantiate those thoughts and prayers with something more concrete, like, I don't know, a donation or a change in their voting habits, or a volunteering an hour, at the puppy kicking shelter, or whatever it is you want. But yeah, thoughts and prayers on their own could be we haven't finished going around the table. Dave.
The thoughts and the prayers. Like as has been alluded to, it can be used in a very, very cynical, internet poisoned manner, as in, oh yeah, it's not material support, so it's irrelevant. I don't think immaterial support is always irrelevant. Like, knowing that somebody cares about your misfortune it's not nothing. Material support is often more regarded as more helpful, for fairly obvious reasons.
And then finally, Owen.
It's a fine sentiment that often includes you doing nothing, but saying, my thoughts and prayers are with you, and now I can move on with the rest of my day. So it cynically, it's the least effort for the maximum amount of visible caring. So, it may not help the person, it may not provide the GM with anything, but it's like, it's there. The love is there. The love is there.
I don't know if I've related this one before, but I'm reminded of an observation made about, and there's probably an observation you can make in any country about any two sort of groups of people, but as this will be sort of almost universally understood, it relates to the difference between Californians and New Yorkers. So you're at the side of the road, you've broken down, and you're in California, this happens, a Californian pulls up, rolls down the window, and says, "Oh, you've broken down. I hate that for you, man. That's terrible. No, I hope you got I hope that works out for you." And they roll their window up and they drive off, and they're very kind, but they're not very caring. And then in New York, you break down, I don't know, Fifth Avenue. That's a place in New York, right? And
Sure.
some New Yorker wanders up and says, "Oh, what's going on here? You broke down. Oh, you dumb idiot. Look, what are you doing with that wrench? Hold on a second. Hey, Paulie, come over here and help me with this Goomba. He's got himself broken down. He's holding the wrench the wrong way. Hey, Paulie, open up that. Yeah, let the gasket out. Okay, you got a cup of water. Okay, let's get this thing going again." And New Yorkers aren't very kind, but they're very caring.
Yeah, the distinction is made abundantly clear with this marvelous example.
but yeah, thoughts and prayers is sort of something you toss out the window on your way by, for the most part. And let's relate this back to our actual, what would you say, villain of this piece, the old plot hook.
Yeah,
the old
absolutely.
Scenario outline.
So let's say you're a GM and you're going, okay, I have this game that I've just purchased and I have read this 300-page textbook and I've more or less figured out how the rules are sort of meant to work on paper. And now my question is, what do I do? How do I start one of these? How do I play one of these? What's likely to happen? There's a whole chapter on murdering people. I'm assuming we're meant to do a bit of that. And there's a really big chapter on something called mantras, which appear to be just spells with a fancy name. But yeah, okay, so how does this work? And you go and you look for the starter adventure, and there's no starter adventure. There is instead a series of ideas or plot hooks going, hey, look, you could take one of these and, as an experienced GM, spin this off easily into 1,000 hours of game time, surely.
The key adjective there being experienced.
Yeah. It's a bit like being handed in the good old days of the 80s, you'd be handed a sheet of bubble wrap and told to do 2 seasons of Doctor Who special effects on it. You could do it, but, either the BBC believed in Doctor Who or it didn't. Just getting the bubble wrap. Look, the problem here is often that writing adventure content is difficult. It is, to an extent, only sellable to the GM content. And it requires, quite a bit of oversight, skill, and art to produce what can be quite a limited product in some ways. And it's way easier just to go, why don't you just give them an adventure outline instead of actually writing the adventure? And why do we cut back in an outline and just give them the BAM line? It's like, could we make the film Jaws? We could. We could also describe it as Shark Attacks Beach. There we go, done. Shark Attacks Beach. What do the players do? It's like, okay, yeah, but there's a lot going from that to Jaws. And I'd like some help figuring out how do I make Jaws, and then what Jaws is like. Is there a book or something I could read? And they go, yes, but we won't tell you its name. Just couldn't get it.
Part of the effort is of a writer of a game providing this content or material, as we might put it. Is that often it's stuff that they've basically internalized over the process of writing the game and presumably playtesting it. I mean, you'll get some nutters who have never rolled a dice in their life who will write an entire 400-page hardback book because they saw something weird in a D&D book they glanced at once and got their dander up about it. But yeah, for the most part, it's the idea of what a GM needing that kind of support could often just be lost in the weeds of the process of getting a book out the door. You as the writer are so marinated in the possibilities of the game and also what the things to avoid in the game are that mentioning them at length just seems that sounds like it's adding another 10 pages of the book, and those cost money.
Yeah, it could be a PDF. But the problem is, right,
and art,
that for an inexperienced GM, plot hooks and ideas are useless. They are the worst advice to give somebody. They're like, okay, spin this into a thing. How do I do a thing? Oh, you haven't covered doing things yet, have you? It's not for them. It's for a specific kind of GM and a specific kind of experienced GM.
Yeah.
They're not that useful to a new player. I would argue they're actively bad for a new GM because it makes them think they've got to take this 3-sentence concept and turn it into an adventure. And I was like, no, that's not for you. Later, that might be for you, but not now. That's not for you. And that's what you kind of have to say to a new BGM. So they're this artifact of like Alphavore used to them as challenge, focus, strike, where they introduce the problem, put in the complication, and then lastly it's the plot twist. As kind of like an allegory of dueling. But a lot of the time, at best, I'm okay with them as like a single detail or a single scene's worth of content outlined in here's the thing. This guy is looking to deliver this package to the guys who want to kill him, and he wants someone to deliver it instead of him so he doesn't get killed. That's a fine plot hook. Here's what's in the package. That's grand. Right? You can do that. This guy wants to put together an expedition to travel to the New World and return with spices and silk, the likes of which ye have never seen. That's not a plot hook. That's an adventure. Don't be telling me about the adventure in your plot hook.
It's an adventure. It's an adventure outline more than an adventure.
They should be specific, small, actionable things that you can use to inject some color in your games. Or when your players are foostering about, you could go, we'll do this. I saw that earlier on, Yeah,
there is a term in screenwriting, and it's talked about when trying to construct a plot or trying to dissect a plot, and the term is "and because of that," quotations, and because of that. And I often read plot hooks and go, well, I think it just occurred to me that actually what most of these need is a follow-up that says, and because of that, X, Y, and Z. Here's a couple of options. So hook is fine, but you want to bait that hook with a couple of morsels.
The South Park guys did a big video about that, didn't they? They were giving a lecture about it, about how they put together plot. And the big thing was they were doing was, and they're going, and then because of that, this happens, and then because of that happens. Yes. And that's how your plot has to work to hang together.
It's that connective tissue that helps an audience, or in this case, the players. Because I'm sure we've all sat through quite numbers of sessions where we get to the end of it and go, I don't remember why any of this happened. Because the connective tissue wasn't strong enough. Because there wasn't enough, and because of that, this thing happened. So I think, like, if we divide up thoughts and prayers. So thoughts, hey, what about if such and such? Great, that's a line, and as you say, it's good for flavor. It's good for, it gets you through maybe a scene, but it ain't a lot. A prayer, however, is a prescribed passage. So a more fully written adventure, and they can often be a little bit leaden. In the sense that they assume that you'll just follow this path, the rote prayer, and your players aren't going to say or do anything that'll take you off of that path. You get to the end of the prayer, adventure's done. Yeehaw, money well spent. But really, we don't just want thoughts, and we don't always want prayers either, do we?
I think the analogy for prayer here would probably be, as I said, applying basic plot structures to things and just throwing, this is 5-act structure, beginning, middle, end, add some goblins, that'll be fine. Where often what you'll actually be more useful, GM, is to get down into the nitty gritty of what makes a scenario in this particular game flow. To say, like, what is the expected path through an adventure in a game? Like, how many investigation scenes should there be? Do you have how many combat should you have? Is your like D&D is infamous for having its a thing where you should probably have 3 to 5 encounters between every long rest, and this is a assumption that is baked into the pacing and combat counters of the game, but is very barely mentioned. Like I think it's in like one line of like the Dungeon Master Guide, very easy to miss, and most people are told to tell you to ignore it anyway. And
Those people are cowards. Just saying.
But I'm saying this is like without putting that kind of structural data front and center. That is often where a new GM will get lost and confused and saying, "Why are they killing all these dragons in 2 rounds? Shouldn't this be hard for them in some way?" And it's because they have one fight every day, and you need to be putting that kind of advice into the "How do I make an adventure go?" piece of your game, and instead, an awful lot of games will just say, "Here's some random tables of ideas to spark your next masterpiece."
I've got a pithy one for you there on that topic. Plot hooks, right, and ideas are like prompts. They're prompts you give to a writer. Okay, right? Now, follow along with this one, right? They're prompts you give to a writer. Some GMs are writers in that they can write a scenario. Or they can kind of write a scenario. But some GMs are directors. And what they actually want is a script they're going to spin their own way.
Yeah.
And they're going to emphasize some bits and de-emphasize others. There's no point giving, here's an idea, here's my high concept for this thing. And you're like, mate, I don't want to try and write a story about a shark. That seems like a terrible idea. Filming at sea is really expensive. I just want to make Hamlet. Do you have a script for Hamlet? I can use that. They're different skill sets. And like some GMs are kind of frustrated directors and some GMs are frustrated novelists. And so, you've got to kind of, some people it's, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. I'm a writer. I got to write me a new story. Other people are like, I do not understand. You've given me no tools to tell this tale. Please give me the tools, and then I will spin it myself. I can't think up NPC names. I am useless on how many combat encounters to have. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And there's a lot of GMs like that. And there's like some GMs hate the concept of a pre-published scenario. They want to do everything themselves. Other GMs are directors. They're just like, no, give me the scenario. I'll run it my way. I'll emphasize what I want, and I'll de-emphasize what I don't want. And I'll have a good time with it.
And this is maybe another element of the perverse incentives of RPG publishing as we have it, is that the products that sell are those that tend to gravitate towards players and what players are doing as opposed to what GM is doing, and therefore the emphasis does not get put onto adventure writing and adventure structure the way that it might be put into character options, character background, lore, and all that kind of stuff.
It is it is almost impossible to square the circle. I will point out that the frustration is mandatory. There's no getting away from it. You get the frustration, then you get to decide if you're a director or a novelist. But you're going to be frustrated. It's, I guess, what do we not like here? What was the game in question? Actually, I've got to go back to the root of this. What was the game system or setting that was being starved of content?
It was an odd one, actually, because it's one that has quite a lot, but someone was complaining they hadn't done a new campaign in a while. It was Rough-Rup, and the person wanted a new campaign, and it hadn't happened. And they were like, I'm fed up with these plot hooks and books. Give me a full campaign.
I've got a bit of a hobby horse to exercise on this subject more widely, but and incoming D&D stuff here. But let's face it, it's been a while since we got a new kind of coherent campaign that was more than 64 pages from the D&D stable.
Oh, like WotC, like.
Well, they've just released. They've just released their big blowout end of fifth ed adventure.
The Vecna thing, yeah. Disappointing, whatever. But like previous to that, they're just republishing and reformatting a lot of old, tried and true adventures. The last one was Tales from the Thundering Doorstep, Whispering Staircase, something Tavern. I can't remember.
Yawning Portal.
Yawning Portal
came out 8 years ago. Mike?
No, there's more recent than that.
They did a bunch of old ones, wasn't it? All
there was the sailing one with no sailing in it. That was just a rehash of a bunch of old ones. Yeah, there's one recent one, Candlekeep Library thing. I don't know. Wow, you think I'd know this stuff? And yeah, you could sort of point the finger at Cubicle 7 as well and go, you're making most of your. Like, I'm about to go into a long Wolfrup campaign, the big 5-part, what's it called? Enemy Within campaign.
Yeah,
and it is like, and disclaimer, I did some work on it. And I know you've done some work on it as well, and they did rewrite large parts of it, but they also hung it on the bones of an almost 30-year-old campaign.
The first 3 are functionally the same parts as the original. Part 4 is wholly original. Part 5 is somewhat influenced by the original 5th part. I could talk at length about why that happened, but
and you have a previous episode.
In fact, you can check out myself and Liam's retrospective reviews of each of them as we've completed them as both player and GM. We've talked about them afterwards.
Have you done the 5th one yet?
Not yet, because we're not finished the 5th one on Liam's side yet. Because Liam is, I ran it and finished it, my 5th one, but Liam is still running it and I'm playing in his one, so we're just waiting to finish up.
All in good time. Stay tuned, folks, and of course, catch up on all of the ins and outs. That you must visit us on YouTube, give us a like and a comment, and maybe a thumbs up and a subscribe. Is a like and a thumbs up the same thing? Yeah, okay. And maybe even subscribe. We just hit 50 subscribers over there. 50. I believe our scrawled on paper YouTube button is on the way any day now. But more importantly, join us on our Discord, where you can join in the after party fun. But it does strike me that those who have a pool of adventures that were hacked out of the raw face of the earth in decades past seem to be very happy to simply give them a polish every so often and shove them out the door again. Because I'm not sure that there's a lot of people doing good work in terms of figuring out how to turn thoughts and prayers into multi-page products that are actually useful.
Well, the problem is a lot of it gets turned not into more adventures, but into generalized, GMing advice. Like I think the big one at the moment is the Alexandrian. It's put out as how to be a GM book.
I'm currently picking over it every time I go to the bathroom. It's a good dip in, dip out book.
Yeah, but it's basically like that's like 10 years of him on his blog mastering the process of turning terrible plot hooks into fully functional adventures. And
at the risk of giving a mini review, not really. It's more systemic than that. In fact, I'd have to go and check the book. It is around here somewhere. But I'm not convinced that he actually addresses this thorniest of issues, how to write a good scenario. I don't think it comes up. I think he's more given over to the sort of emergent campaign idea. Where the hell is that book? It should be within my eye line.
Writing scenario is really hard. I had a big rant about that it's not well outlined really how you do it and why you do it and when you do what you do. And it's just, it's one of these things that there's no one-size-fits-all advice that cuts into it. There's no perfect formula. Nobody has hacked it the way they hacked Hollywood script writing to figure out exactly how many action beats you need, how long before a joke, and everything else like that, which one guy memorably did and wrote a book about it. So
here's the very, very top level content from So You Want to Be a Game Master by Justin Alexander, which I went out and bought my own copy because so did everyone else. And it deals, the broadest parts are dungeons, mysteries, raids and heists, urban adventures, into the wild, and then there's a whole extra credit section. But it must be noted that those are elements that might crop up in a scenario, a mystery or a raid or a heist or journeying through the wild, but they're nothing to do with actually why or how all of that hangs together. There is a section in the back of this over 500-page book called Scenario Hooks, and it runs for 8 pages.
Okay.
So that's, and I would rate Justin Alexander as one of the bigger thinkers in this space. Not necessarily, I think he's very good in terms of, in fact, I'd say it's going to become an according to Hoyle text for people who want to figure out the nitty-gritty of running a table. There's lots of systems and lots of system breakdown stuff that he does around stuff that's quite nebulous in other books or isn't given a lot of time. But when you devote an entire 500-page home to just sort of hacking out the ways to track, systematize, and engage players with the ins and outs of doing role-playing, then very valuable. But I must say, yeah, even for this guy, it's not... I guess... is the answer here... We've been on for, 20 minutes? Is the answer here, unfortunately, you should probably take a creative writing course and then do little bit of improv?
No. I would say get selective about where you're getting... well, I won't even say inspiration from. If you find that prompts are not enough, like for whatever reason, then they're not enough. Like you if you're going to look for material, you're going to have to look for elsewhere to people who provide more than prompts.
Creative writing is a completely different discipline to GMing or writing a scenario, right? Going in and going to try and ham-fistedly apply lessons you've learned in your creative writing course to your RPG will just drive your players crazy. You're going, we're going to be doing themes today. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about themes. I want to talk about who we're killing. I want to steal money. That's my motivation. Would you stop this? And, let's do a flashback 6 months earlier. No, we don't. Like, none of this stuff, all these clever, stories, it's not what RPGing is about. Role-playing is a game, okay? And the second you start confusing it for a novel, you're on a hiding to disappointment. No, none of that, right? What you do is you have to start off, if you're starting, do not start with a game that doesn't have a couple of pre-published adventures you can run to get to be training wheels for you. You may figure out you hate it, you want to write your own stuff. Great. You figured out something about your GM preferences. Okay? But you do not start with, I'm gonna write my own adventure. And you do not start with, I'm gonna spin this plot hook into a 15-year epic campaign. No, this is not where you start. You start very small. And after some time running these games, you'll either figure out if you can turn a plot hook into an adventure or not. You might think, that's an interesting concept. I'll give you an example. Okay, this is one that I've kind of had bouncing around in my head for a little while. I was looking at Star Trek Adventures, and I was going, what would I run if I was going to run a big adventure for that? And I thought, what's the Antares Maelstrom? Because Q is always, or not Q, Khan talks about, he chased him around, the Antares Maelstrom. What is it? And I look up, it's a really dangerous nebula with a starbase next to it. And I go, what if there was another ship full of augments, another space seed that went into the Antares Maelstrom and got damaged and trapped there? And they went to suspended animation. And then I said, what if the Antares Maelstrom is so dangerous because it's used as a prison by the Q continuum, and they put a Q in there who is very naughty, and he's trapped in there? And what if the guys in Space Seed wake up and they come out, and because they've been suffused with his power, every bit of their ship gives them the ability to reshape reality. So they can start going around the galaxy and destroying places because they have this tool which can locally alter reality. So you're literally up against space magic with your Star Trek. I said that, and how would I go down? And that's me taking one kind of little bit and going, oh, what if I did this? And what if I did that? And what if I did the other? And then I finished out, this is why everything's happening. Now we go back to, okay, when do the players come in? The players come in when the starbase has been destroyed and the planets around are being attacked by these ships. That's where it starts. You know? But you've got to be quite experienced to do that. You don't just do it on a whim. You basically got to keep running games and thinking about how games fit together, thinking about how plots fit together, and then put it together. But it's not for the start. It's when you're away in, when you're a couple of years into this sickness, you can start doing this, not beforehand.
Yeah. Dave, do you have any nuggets of information?
Additionally, I suppose just to return to my my last point about if you're if you find that prompts just get your mind whizzing and you could smash out a session just like that, cool, brilliant. But if you need a bit more meat in the bones, then yeah, it behooves you to not waste your time reading through prompts and random tables if they're just going to frustrate you.
Yeah, I'd say myself, like, I came into the hobby in a very backwards manner, and I definitely was one of those fools who went in by designing my entire world and then subjecting it to players and watching it crumble to dust in front of me. So I definitely learned the trenches.
Welcome to Fight Club.
You literally rolled on random encounter tables at convention scenarios, Shane.
Yeah.
At the start, I was going, this man's a sicko. I don't know what's wrong with him. Why is he doing this?
Oh, Owen, were you ever handed one of Shane's scenarios for convention 15 minutes before I had to run?
So much prep. So much good stuff. I think I ran a few of your Encounters with Warlord scenarios for and con scenarios. We should talk about those as part of this. They're a whole other bevy of beverage. But yes, you get all sorts. You get handed. If any of you out there are con GMs, we'd love to hear from you. I know I've plugged the Discord already, but please come and tell us your stories about your time running convention games or writing convention games. Because I'm pretty sure, have all of us written convention games here?
Yeah, definitely have.
Yes.
But my point is, well,
some great stuff.
I prevent my over prep for convention side, which has turned into good and virtuous over prepping rather than the madness of my early days. But the point I was trying
60
to get,
pages. 60 pages.
It's gone down to 28 now. It's fine.
Good man. That'll only take me. I'll get through that in 15 minutes. But go on. You do have a point to make.
My point is, you. We're writing this assuming that we cannot alter the way that RPG writers choose what to put into their books, and therefore, yeah, we have to approach this from the GM's perspective. Like, the GM is being given their thoughts and prayers of plot hooks while they do with it. I tend to find that it's very difficult to control where you get your inspiration from. Like, sometimes a random plot hook kind of thing will spark something into you. Often with me, it's just some random side material in a bigger campaign. Like, as I said, I got that Ghosts of Saltmarsh book with a bunch of boat adventures and then some vague ideas about boats at the end, and very little connective tissue. And the thing that inspired me in that book was one paragraph about there are hags in the forest and they have an army. I was like, wait, what kind of army? And that snowballed into an idea that I've stuck in my head now. So if I ever run a Saltmarsh game, it will have nothing to do with boats. Very sorry to everyone who really likes boats.
Wow.
But finally get to this point. Inspiration is cheap. What is most useful to you is, as Owen said, trying some material, trying to implement it, and paying attention to where you need help. Figuring out what do I need to prep, and what can I improvise in 2 minutes. If names are a problem for you, get a list of 100 names, print them on a sheet, and stroke them off as you use them. If the problem is monster stats, just start photocopying your monster manual, or have you, and have a action go sheet, or like if you're commercially inclined, I do believe some monster cards that you can just deal yourself a deck of monsters of a certain CR or what have you. Those are an option. But just to say, like you will find that plot hooks are not meaty enough for your things. But if you go through the books you have again, and a lot of the stuff will be generic advice, not tied to a system. Some of it will be, some will not. Just pick out the pieces that you find are going to be most useful to you. And again, this isn't a question you can really answer without getting stuck in and making some mistakes. And part of being a starting GM is you don't start in a 15-year epic level campaign. So you just have to start and be willing to mess up a few times and learn from it. Unfortunately, is the best advice I can give at the end of the day.
Are we gassing up experienced GMs a little too much here?
As a bevy of experienced GMs, we might be, yes.
Yeah, because I also don't particularly like the hopes and prayers aspect of writing things, especially in something I paid for. Is like, you could do something here. That kind of, you do the heavy lifting stuff really annoys me. I just, before we move on, I just got to say, like, Scarr, with some artwork, some of your con scenarios could just be published on Drive-Thru-RPG as entire, but as very good products for someone who has the time to sit down and read them. There's one or two in particular that you'd covered everything, and I just read it and went. I read it very fast at 15 minutes, but I just thought, wow. I mean, if the players even get to half of this will be amazing. But so I believe there should be perhaps some examples of a compromise. I've probably championed this little thing that I found more than I maybe should have, because it's very particular. But it's I think a good example of how this kind of problem could be addressed. You said something about, some people want to be inspired, they're the novelists, and some people want framework, and they're the directors. So I want to be inspired, I want to be guided. And that's a tension that no plot hook or entirely written out scenario is going to satisfy. That the two things that are apart. But I've discovered there are some mad, kind souls out there who do produce things that are just about sit in a middle ground, and I've found them quite good. There's one in particular that I've grown quite fond of. It is 2 pages of double column, written in D&D ease. So there's lots of sort of stuff in here regarding treasure and challenge ratings and experience, things like that. And it's all broken out by paragraphs. It is by a man called William J. Scott III, and it's called The Cursed Pass. I'm gonna take this document and upload it to our Discord. I don't have the rights to do that. I'm sure Mr. William J. Scott III, if he wants to, he can cleave me in twain for doing so. But I think this is worth seeing as an example of something that a starting GM and an experienced GM can get almost equal value out of. The first page of The Cursed Pass, it has a goal, a background of about 150 words, and some information and rumors. It has 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 locations, get about a paragraph each, detailing what they are. This Cursed Pass is a high mountain pass, lots of snow. It's something that the PCs are trying to traverse. So it's you could drop it into any red line on the map part of your campaign. But equally, it could work as a starting adventure. But bear in mind, it is only 2 pages. And the second page is a list of random encounters, 1 to 12, that you roll. For each day they're in the past, you roll a d20. 13 to 20, no encounter. Otherwise, you will come across these encounters in whatever order. So there's a beautiful sort of replayability to this. You can run the curse pass for groups several times. Oh, and there's a hag, which is also always useful. It's billed as a level 5 adventure. So
That
level
sounds
3,
pretty neat.
it is incredibly neat because it is incredibly concise. It doesn't give you any more than you need. You can read it. Like literally, you'll have it back to front read in 15 minutes twice. And it has enough in it. It has some characters. It has some factions. It's even got a dragon. To inspire. Or if you're less certain of yourself, you can just run it programmatically as it is described if you need structure. And I think it sits in this I mean, it's practically uncommercializable. Uncommercializable, there's a word. I'm sure he has a Patreon somewhere. I'm going to dig out some links, hopefully. Or I'll forget. But for me at least, it is this beautiful example of exactly the step beyond a hope and a prayer that isn't stepping all the way into writing entire scenarios. You could easily drop this into almost any campaign. And if you had the space in a book, say a core book, instead of setting out one example adventure over the course of 20 pages, you could put 10 of these in, spanning so many. Like this is a frosty crevasse. You could have one for a small village. You could have one for a dwarven temple. You could show off different aspects of your campaign world with these. Like I said, I'll drop it for people to see, and they can make their own judgments on it. It's very much geared towards OSR/5th ed. It's vague enough that you can fit it to both. And I think for me at least, it represents a hope that I'd love to write something like this. I imagine writing something as good as this is a harder skill set than I'm actually equipped to appreciate until I try it. But yeah, I think given what we've been talking, given the 2 lines isn't good enough, no one's got time for the opus. Is there something in between? So I'm doing this third way thing, Me and Tony Blair. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I've got to say on the subject. I hope you find this little 2-page document as inspiring as I have. But how do we shut this thing down? Is there? Can we just damn it from a height then? Hopes and prayers, no damn good.
We're approaching the 30-minute mark, right? Yeah.
So
Try 30,
what have we got? I've had my say. So
for me, what it comes down to is that they're a fine tool and they're a fine idea, but they're a prompt, and that's for someone with a lot of experience. And I think the base layer of any RPG requires good starter adventures to explain your game to new GMs in particular, but frankly, it's useful for all GMs to have an idea of the shape of a game before they start running it. So they're fine to put in there, but they're not mainline support, and don't regard them as mainline support. They're not frontline stuff. They're secondary support materials an experienced person can fall back on, but they're not for a newbie.
Amen. Yeah. They in fact, they're probably a very dangerous precipice to sort of invite someone to jump off in the belief that they can fly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's quite an image, but I think you're onto something there.
Like, it looks so simple. Hey, what if? And then, what if you tried flying from the ground floor instead of jumping off the top of the building? Then at least you'd find out you don't have wings yet, and your nose will hurt. But that's about it. Is that an old George Carlin joke? Okay, I think we have to. I don't know. I think we can just say yes. That's that. Careful of thoughts and prayers. If anyone offers them, maybe put your hand out and ask for a leg up instead. Wow, that's mixed. Either way, this party is over. Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. Join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.